Session 8.
You've already taken an important step in mastering the science of self-discipline by learning how to turn your most important goals into step-by-step plans for achievement. Now comes the time to roll up your sleeves and learn how to put these plans into action. This is an exciting moment for you and a turning point in your quest for success. Up until now, you've learned how to prepare for achievement. Now you're going to learn how to actually tackle the hard, efficient work that is the bread and butter of achievement itself. Notice we said hard, efficient work, not just hard work. Hard work alone doesn't guarantee success. In fact, many unfortunate people spend a great deal of time working very hard and never get anywhere in spite of it. Making intelligent and efficient use of your time is of paramount importance in achieving your goal, especially when that goal may take years to achieve. In this session, you're going to learn how to manage your time and effort so efficiently that you won't waste one valuable moment in your journey to achievement. You'll learn how to find time in an already busy schedule to work on the micro tasks that make up the stepping stones to your macro purpose. You'll find out why what we call seasoning, a special way of looking at time, is so critically vital to your success. You'll learn how to actually quicken time, make hours seem like minutes, weeks seem like days, and years seem like months. And you'll learn once and for all how to develop the do-it-now habit, allowing you to permanently overcome the world's #1 cause of failure, procrastination. By the time you finish this session and complete the corresponding exercises in your study guide, you'll be equipped with a new attitude towards time and achievement, and you'll be ready to begin systematically putting your step-by-step plans into purposeful, disciplined action. Let's now begin exploring the fascinating principles of using and managing time that can make the difference between success and failure. To begin at the beginning, let's talk a little bit about the relationship between time itself and achievement. We all know that it takes time to accomplish something. Depending on what you'd like to accomplish, it may take a little bit of time or a great deal of time. The same goal can also sometimes be achieved in less time or more time, depending on how good a job you want to do in achieving it. Think about any small task you might be confronted with around the house. Let's say one of your doors is stuck and needs planing in order for it to open and close easily. There are lots of ways you could accomplish that task, and lots of shortcuts you could take. But in order to do a really good job, you know you should measure the door and doorway opening, figure out how much wood you need to remove, take the door off the hinges, and mount it on a sawhorse and plane it down until it reaches the right size. This approach may take longer than some others you can think of, but it's the best way to achieve your goal. And when the job is done properly, you know that door will never get stuck again. The person who takes the time to do the job right is the epitome of the self-disciplined achiever. Someone who has learned not to worry about time, but use it to its full potential to achieve a goal in the best way possible. None of your goals are going to be as simple as this one to accomplish, but the principle remains the same. To achieve with excellence, you're going to need a long period of time in which to allow your knowledge and skills to mature and grow. This is the concept of time that we call seasoning. Seasoning is a law of nature. All things take time to come to fruition. People, in their impatience to get what they want without going through this growing process, often end up stunting their own personal growth and making true success impossible. Shortcuts only lead to mediocrity and failure. Scientists, philosophers, artists, and statesmen have always recognized the importance of seasoning in accomplishing any goal. When asked by an impatient student how long it would take to become a master teacher, the Roman philosopher Epictetus replied, "Nothing comes into being all at once, not even the grape or the fig. If you say to me now, 'I want a fig,' I shall answer, 'That requires time.' Let the tree first bring forth tender blossoms. Let the blossoms endure the weathering of the sun, wind, and rain. Let the tree then put forth its fruit, and finally, let the fruit ripen." Cybervision founder Steve DeVore recalls learning about seasoning the hard way. "When I was 5 years old," he said, "I planted a garden in my backyard. Because I didn't understand how seeds grew, I would go out and dig them up every day to see if they'd sprouted yet. I hardly watered them, and I didn't weed them regularly as I should have. Because I was so impatient and neglectful, my plants never got the chance to grow properly. And when harvest time came, my vegetables were pitifully small and undeveloped. I had a friend next door, a slightly older boy who understood the principles of gardening. He let his plants grow and ripen in their own time, helping them along with regular watering, fertilizing, and weeding. He enjoyed a bountiful harvest that summer, and I learned a lesson about patience and self-discipline. All great achievers not only understand the concept of seasoning, but they value it greatly. They know that success cannot be hurried. They know that to try to hurry it is to ruin it. They understand that every step along the road to achievement is a necessary one and a small achievement in itself. And they also know that getting there can and should be half the fun. Self-disciplined achievers are willing to pay the price of time to realize their ambitions. They are not intimidated by the thought of having to work and study for 5, 10, even 15 years. Their commitment to a goal is absolute, and their vision of success is unwavering. The self-disciplined achiever knows that if what he wants will take 5 years to achieve, the 5-year effort will be worth it. He knows that those 5 years are going to pass anyway, and he has a choice about whether to spend them preparing for success or wasting the time thinking and dreaming about what he'd really like to do. For the self-disciplined achiever, there is no choice. He'll gladly spend those 5 years working and studying to achieve his goal. Does several years seem like a long time to you? Think how fast the last 5 years of your life have gone by. What did you do during that time to make achievement possible? If you had been working steadily towards your goal all that time, you could have achieved it by now. Let's say you're 34 years old, and your dream is to become an architect. You know it will take you 6 years of schooling and apprenticeship before you can get a good job with a respected architectural firm. But that means you'll be 40 years old by the time you reach your goal, and you feel you just can't wait that long. Stop and think. You're going to be 40 years old in 6 years whether you study architecture or not. And if you choose not to study it now, in 6 years, you'll be in the exact same position, wanting to be an architect and knowing it will take you 6 years to get there. Only by then, you'll have to work until you're 46 to achieve your goal. You can get there in 6 years by starting now, or you can choose to give up hope of ever getting there at all. If you really want to achieve your goal, 6 years won't seem like such a long time. As you'll find out later in this session, to the self-disciplined achiever, the 6 years will go by very fast. Impatient people want things to happen overnight. In the words of French philosopher Blaise Pascal, they anticipate the future as too slow in coming. And in being unwilling to devote hours of time to the kind of seasoning it takes to become accomplished at anything, they waste their lives by doing nothing at all, and they wonder why they always feel so unfulfilled. How many youngsters have you known who came home from a rock concert determined to learn to play the guitar? It looked easy when the group on stage was playing, so the youngster goes out and buys a guitar and takes his first few lessons. And all of a sudden, it becomes apparent that it's not easy. It's going to take years of hard work and effort to learn to play really well. So the youngster loses interest and gives up, bored with the tedium of practicing scales for hours. Yet the professional musicians he's watched have put in years of practice to get where they are, and where the youngster would like to be. The great artist Pablo Picasso was once approached by an admiring woman in a restaurant. Having recognized him, she asked him to draw something, anything, on a napkin for her. She told him she'd pay him whatever he thought was fair, if only he would provide her with this impromptu work of art. Picasso agreed and spent 5 minutes drawing a picture on the napkin. When he was finished, the woman picked the napkin up in delight. How much did he want for the picture, she asked. Calmly, Picasso replied, $10,000. Dumbfounded, the woman began to argue with him that a picture drawn on a napkin in 5 minutes couldn't possibly be worth that much. But Picasso just smiled and said, Madame, it may have only taken me 5 minutes to draw the picture, but it took me 40 years to learn how to draw it. 40 years. Does that seem like an interminable amount of time? To a master artist seeking the ultimate expression of his talent, a great scientist seeking a cure for disease, or an ambitious businessman trying to turn a small company into a Fortune 500 corporation, 40 years can seem to fly by overnight. To the dedicated, self-disciplined achiever, time is nourishment for what he wants to accomplish. And that time is well spent, taking step after step in a continuous effort to achieve a specific goal. The achiever does not get sidetracked. Every day he concentrates on the micro tasks that make up his macro purpose. And each completed micro task becomes a source of pleasure and a reward in itself. Top newscaster Eric Sevareid achieved his macro purpose by actually ignoring it. Instead, he concentrated on the micro purposes that would help him accomplish his goal. Sevareid tells the story in his own words. Once when I relinquished my job and income to undertake a book of 250,000 words, I could not bear to let my mind dwell on the whole scope of the project. I would have surely abandoned what has become my deepest source of professional pride. I tried to think only of the next paragraph, not the next page, and certainly not the next chapter. Thus, for 6 months, I never did anything but set down one paragraph after another. The book wrote itself. Years ago, I took on a daily writing and broadcasting chore that has totaled now more than 2,000 scripts. Had I been asked at the time to sign a contract to write 2,000 scripts, I would have refused in despair at the enormousness of such an undertaking. But I was only asked to write one, the next one, and that is all I have ever done. You can learn to work in microtasks by following your step-by-step plan for success and concentrating only on each step at a time. But you cannot learn seasoning as if it were a skill. Seasoning is an attitude that must be adopted and made part of your mental framework if you are able to achieve your lifelong purpose. It is crucial to self-discipline. More than that, it is actually at the heart of self-discipline. Besides seasoning, the self-disciplined achiever experiences something we call time quickening. Time quickening does not mean taking shortcuts, as you might first guess. Rather, it represents what happens to your perception of time as you become involved in the pursuit of your goal. Time quickening is an almost magical experience where time seems to disappear and you know you're in complete control of what you're doing. When it happens, you feel energetic, concentrated, and completely absorbed in your task. We've all experienced time quickening when we're doing something we particularly enjoy. For you, it may have happened while you were reading an exciting murder mystery, watching an action-filled movie, playing a game of tennis, or even weeding a garden. Time quickening takes place whenever you find yourself completely engrossed in something to the point where nothing can distract you. The moments fly by so quickly, you're just not aware of them. Past and future seem to disappear, leaving only you and the task you're engaged in. And after what only seems like minutes, you look up and notice in shock that a great deal of time has passed. Dreams are a reverse example of this phenomenon. Although you may often wake up feeling as if you've been dreaming a particular dream for hours, the whole thing has actually taken place in just a minute or two. The human mind has the amazing ability to alter our own perception of time. Once you learn to use this ability to your advantage, you will no longer be discouraged at the thought of having to spend so much time pursuing your goal. Scientific research has shown us how to trigger the experience of time quickening. You can actually learn to consciously create the sensation that time has stopped. You can do it by becoming single-mindedly and uninterruptedly involved in an activity for a significant period of time. Time quickening occurs when you surrender your attention and your senses to something outside of yourself. There are 6 steps you can and must take to experience the benefits of time quickening. Listen to them carefully, and then try to recreate them, first with lesser tasks that may or may not be related to your goal, then with your actual micro-purposes. First, create or find a working environment that is free of distractions and potential diversions. Second, focus on doing one task at a time and stick with it until it is completed. Third, surrender yourself to the task at hand. Work hard and work well, and don't stop working until you have finished as much or more of the task as you started out to do. Fourth, plan to work uninterruptedly for a significant span of time, several hours if possible. Fifth, don't watch the clock as you work, and don't continually compare how much you've accomplished against how much you still have to do. Sixth and last, stop working when your thinking becomes muddled due to fatigue. The first few times you try using these 6 steps, you may have a hard time following them all. But the more you practice, the easier it will get. And soon you'll notice that time seems to be flying by quicker and quicker every time you sit down to work. Time quickening makes work enjoyable and helps prevent the normal wear and tear of work on your mind and your nerves. It is the antidote to burnout and the key to maintaining a healthy emotional balance during long hours of effort. Time quickening will enable you to successfully complete the string of microtasks that over an extended period of time will take you closer and closer to the completion of your macro goal. And if your goal is years away, time quickening will make it seem to all happen so quickly that the illusion of overnight success will almost seem as if it's coming true. Using time quickening to follow a step-by-step plan for reaching a goal is one way to make that goal appear closer than it really is. But time quickening won't do you any good if you find you can't even get started on your microtasks. For most people, the biggest enemy of success is procrastination, postponing doing the work you know you must do in order to accomplish your ambitions. Like most people, you may think procrastination is relatively harmless, a trivial problem that you don't really need to worry about. But there's nothing trivial about a habit that is the cancer of self-discipline. Procrastination is an achievement killer, and unfortunately, the more often you succumb to it, the more habitual it gets and the harder it is to deal with. Procrastination is a serious deterrent to self-discipline, and it takes a serious effort to overcome it. In the next part of this session, we're going to explore some common reasons for procrastination and the most effective ways of overcoming the would-be achiever's most self-defeating habit. Psychological research tells us that chronic procrastinators fall into 3 groups. The first group fears failure. The second group fears success. And the third group uses procrastination as a way of rebelling against authority. Let's examine each of these groups to see how they turn their own psychological problems into reasons for procrastination. The first type of procrastinator may actually already be a successful business person or professional, but he or she is successful only up to a point. These people set such high standards for themselves that they live in constant fear of not being able to meet those standards. They cripple their own efforts to succeed by working at less than their capacity, so they are never really challenged and therefore never will fail. People who are successful early in life, usually in school or in an athletic career, often turn into this type of procrastinator. Take Sarah, for example, a city planner who graduated at the top of her class from Stanford University. Soon after graduation, Sarah joined the planning director's office in a major West Coast city. One of her duties is to generate reports for her boss to use in making important presentations. Sarah has begun putting off doing the reports until the last minute. While she collects the material in time, she finds that she dawdles with the writing process until the night before, or sometimes even the morning of the presentation. She then rushes through the writing and ends up turning out an adequate but far from superlative report. What Sarah manages to do in each case is avoid testing herself to the maximum. She is not certain whether she can live up to the high promise of her success in school. By putting off her work till the last minute, she doesn't have to find out the truth about her abilities, because of course at the last minute nobody could be expected to turn out a perfect report. In the course of this kind of procrastination, Sarah has picked up a new skill called brinksmanship. She flirts with catastrophe by not doing her work in time, then pulls herself out of the brink at the last minute. If her performance doesn't measure up, she can always blame lack of time for failure. When her performance is good, she can applaud her ability to come through in the clutch. All that Sarah is proving is that she can do an adequate job at the last minute. The real test what she'd do with the report if she took the time to work on it has never been faced. The second group of procrastinators are afraid of the very thing most people are striving for: success. Some of these people are simply afraid to stand out from the crowd. They don't want to be seen as different. Many are afraid that if they are too successful, they will outgrow marriage partners, families, or friends. These people limit their own performance, actually holding themselves back, because they fear the kind of change success may bring to their lives. The third group of procrastinators is constantly rebelling against authority. These are the people who put off doing their work because it gives them a feeling of control over their boss. Rebellious procrastinators spend their lives reacting to a fear of being controlled or dominated. Whenever something is expected of them, they react by procrastinating just to prove that they are the ones in power. If you're a procrastinator, you probably fall into one of these three groups, or you may find you have a little bit of each type of procrastinator in you. Understanding the reason for your procrastination is your first step towards overcoming it. It's especially important for you to realize how self-destructive and self-defeating procrastination is. Whether you're rebelling against someone or responding to an inner fear, procrastination will eventually hurt you in everything you try to do. There are a number of techniques you can use to help overcome the habit of procrastination and replace it with energetic, efficient, inspired action. William James, the great Harvard University psychologist and philosopher, who already taught us in Session 5 the value of acting as if we are what we want to be, has a very practical solution to procrastination. James suggests, do something every day for no other reason than you would rather not do it at all. Listen again. Do something every day for no other reason than you would rather not do it at all. What James is really telling you to do is to replace the habit of procrastination with the habit of action. As soon as you catch yourself thinking, well, I won't do that now, I'll do it later, you must immediately do whatever it is you're procrastinating about. Self-disciplined achievers also use two special time management techniques to overcome the tendency to procrastinate. The first is called Swiss cheesing. The second is called unscheduling. Swiss cheesing is another term for dividing a macro purpose into a series of micro tasks. The management consultant who invented the term conceived of it as a way of poking holes in a large task to make many smaller tasks. If you have a task that will take 2 hours, Swiss cheesing it creates 8 15-minute segments, or 4 30-minute segments, or however many smaller segments you need to get the task done. Breaking a macro purpose down into micro tasks makes it seem much less formidable. In fact, this one-step-at-a-time approach is the only way to achieve a major goal. Without losing sight of what you want to achieve, you should never go around thinking about the enormity of your major purpose. You must concentrate only on achieving one small step at a time. Unscheduling also helps you to overcome procrastination and get on with your project in the most efficient way possible. Sometimes you know you're going to need so much time to complete a task that you won't even start it. You rationalize that you'll never find the time to finish it anyway. But often people overestimate how much time it really will take them to do something, and they don't realize that by Swiss cheesing, they can find the time to do it in an otherwise busy schedule. Turn to page 45 of your study guide and look at Form 8.1. You'll see a chart with the days of the week listed along the top row, and the hours in a day listed vertically along the left side. There are 7 days listed and 16 hours per day. The chart presumes that you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and retire at 10 p.m., but you can easily change the numbers to correspond to your own daily hours. It's often a shock to look at a chart like this and realize how many hours you actually have available to you in a 1-week period. Of course, many of those hours are taken up with the necessities of everyday life. Your first task in this exercise is to fill in all those hours that are occupied with travel, meals, work, meetings, regular recreational activities, and other commitments. Only fill in the time that absolutely must be devoted to activity. If you regularly watch television or read magazines for 3 hours every night, that doesn't qualify as a life necessity unless it's part of your job to do so. When you've finished, look at the boxes you haven't filled in. These represent your free time, time you have full control over and can devote to your own micro-projects. You may be amazed to find that you easily have 20 or 30 hours per week of free time to devote to your project. And if you include time that's spent commuting on a bus or train, the hours may add up to considerably more than that. Once you've ascertained when and where your free time occurs, you can begin allocating that time to your micro-projects. When the hour arrives to start working, remember William James' advice and do it now. Work uninterruptedly during that time, taking scheduled breaks only as necessary. And don't allow yourself to get sidetracked. Working uninterruptedly means learning to say no when people try to take you away from your work. If a friend calls up and asks you to go bowling while you're working, you must learn to refuse. Make a date to go some other night, but complete your working hours in the time you've allotted to them. Let your family know that you're serious about completing your tasks. Schedule time to enjoy being with them, and let them know that when you're working, you are not to be interrupted. After successfully completing each work session, fill in the blank hours on your chart with a special colored pen or pencil. Choose a name for your project and fill in the blanks with that name. It will soon become extremely rewarding for you to look at the chart and see the red or green boxes begin to take up considerable space on the page. More rewarding, you'll begin to see real progress in your effort to complete your micro-tasks. As you learn to devote uninterrupted time to your work, you'll find the time-quickening experience begin to occur more and more often, and you'll be less and less inclined to procrastinate. Soon your micro-projects will become as much a part of your life as eating and sleeping. And an excitement will take hold as you begin to realize that yes, you are working steadily toward your goal. And not only can you really do it, you are really doing it. Be careful not to overcommit yourself in terms of time spent on your project. Your goal is not to exhaust yourself. And beware of trying to go in too many directions at once. That can cause the kind of anxiety that will make you want to give up before you even get started. Concentrate on accomplishing one task at a time. That task will get done, and then you can start on the next, which will also get done, and so on. Keep in mind through all of this that your objective is not to punish yourself with work in every free hour you have during the week. Working towards a macro goal by accomplishing micro tasks should not be an unpleasant experience. By creating a healthy balance between work and recreation, you'll find yourself looking forward to those hours when you can devote yourself to pursuing the goal that will make life truly worthwhile for you. You'll reach a point where you wouldn't trade those hours for anything in the world. You've come a long way in this session. You've learned how to overcome the tendency to procrastinate, how to experience time quickening, and how to learn to value seasoning as inevitable in reaching any goal. We'd like to make one more suggestion to you before ending this session. Put up a sign at your desk, table, or other workspace. A sign in big, bold letters that you can see every time you look up. This sign should say, "Use time or lose time." Let it serve as a constant reminder that time marches on, whether you're working toward your goal or not. And every minute that you are devoting to your micro-projects is bringing you just a little bit closer to achieving your life's ambition. In the next session, you'll find out how self-disciplined achievers master the skills and knowledge they need to make their vision a reality. And you'll learn to broaden your own new field of knowledge by overcoming your learning blocks and harnessing your built-in powers of intelligence and discipline.